I get to start off. You get to do the intro. So good morning,
Okay,
everyone.
fine.
Good morning, Alex. Good morning, Michelle. Good morning, Howard.
Good evening.
This is something I want to do. I began my photography career in the 80s, and this has been my book all the time.
Oh, I love it.
It's the best ever because in the 80s, there's no photography book. It's the only one available, and we're shooting in film, of course. And you look at this picture, it's still very relevant today. Everyone is doing this picture of kids underwater.
That's
I'm not sure
true.
what this was, but this is like the Suzuki method to underwater photography.
Yes.
It's a shortcut. There's 33 pictures in there. Pick the pictures you want and you find how to do it straight away. Don't worry about the technical aspect of cameras, but look from the picture. This has been best ever. I'm not sure you can get this book now, but I'm not going to sell it away. I'm going to keep it.
I think you
I'm
can
going to pass it to my son.
You can get it used on Amazon or eBay for about 99 cents.
Really?
So, Michael,
That
I
is the best book ever.
Michael,
All
I
right.
have a challenge.
Well, thank you, Michael.
I have a challenge for you. When it's all done, to look through that book and look up close, focus, wide angle, now referred to as CFWA.
Yep, right.
You're going to find it in that book, close, focus,
Yes.
wide angle. First
Very
time.
relevant.
Wow.
It's in tattered now, but next time I see you need to sign it for me.
Okay, well, if it's still in one piece, they fall apart pretty badly.
Yeah. You
All
might
right,
need to
Alex,
have it
fire away,
You might
Alex.
need to have it rebound. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. This is like the best way I can imagine spending a Friday night in or out of quarantine. So thank you. All right, I'm going to do a pared down bio because if I did the full one, we might be here until tomorrow. So, okay. Howard and Michele Hall have devoted their 40-year career to making underwater wildlife films. Working as a team, Howard and Michele have produced and directed many television films, including a National Geographic special, 3 episodes of the PBS series Nature, and the 5-hour PBS series Secrets of the Ocean Realm. Their television work has resulted in 7 Emmys. In addition to numerous television films, Howard has directed and Michele has produced underwater large format IMAX features with a box office total exceeding $200 million. Woo! Exciting stuff. All right. In 2011, Howard and Michele were named Divers of the Year at Beneath the Sea and were also inducted into the International Scuba Diving Hall of Fame. In 2013, they received the International Wildlife Film Festival's Lifetime Achievement Award for Marine Conservation and Media. And in 2016, they were named as honorees of the Hans Haas Award. Both are recipients of the Academy of Underwater Arts and Sciences NOGI. They're currently in production on 2 films. One is a large format IMAX film, which they hope will be released next year in 2021. And the second is a feature-length documentary. So even though that only scratches the surface, it's amazing. So thank you guys so much for joining us, and we cannot wait to see pictures and videos. Yay! So take it away whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to start with some video, I guess.
All right, cool.
I'm going to hit the screen share button, and this will all just turn into...
We'll dive in.
We'll
happen.
see.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll see what happens. Stand by.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to show a video here that I made for, it was a competition when 8K first became, a new format. I had one of the first 8K cameras, and Dell Computers was starting to make 8K monitors. And so they held a competition for 8K films of 1 minute or less, which is how long this is. And I entered with some underwater stuff. The first place was a beautiful Dell 75-inch 8K monitor. I got second place, and I got a 4K monitor that wouldn't even play video.
Not the best.
So this is the video. It's called Trashing It. I'll just let it play. It's only like a minute long. It's all captured in 8K and from various places in the world.
No narration, just music.
Okay.
And video.
see if it's working. So with that tearjerker at the end, I really should have got first place.
I agree. They screwed up. They screwed
I
up.
was very manipulative to put that in there, but it's kind of interesting because formats are changing. All my early television stuff was shot in 16 millimeter. That footage was then shown on standard definition television at 480 horizontal lines of resolution. I'm going to stop there.
We have technical issues.
Minor technical issues.
Hold on.
Minor. It's fine.
Yeah, well, he's talking, he went past my still image.
It kept going, yeah.
Yeah, and so stand by.
No problem.
I need to go back to my...
There, okay.
Whoops.
We got it.
I forgot to stop it. So anyway, all the formats have been changing, and my early stuff was 16 millimeter standard definition, 80 horizontal lines of resolution. And
wow.
And the thing that's interesting about it is that the formats have gotten much higher resolution. HD came along, and HD has now been supplanted by 4K, and now there's 8K, being captured with cameras, and there's a lot of market for 8K footage. And it's every time that happens, the old libraries captured in lower resolutions depreciate. And all the stuff that I shot in standard definition, even though some of it was really amazing and really can't be reproduced now, essentially worthless. Nobody's going to watch standard definition anymore. And HD is rapidly going that way. We can still sell HD footage, but our clients, we have a big stock footage library. We sell a lot of footage to BBC, National Geographic, and people like that.
Right.
The HD stuff just doesn't sell anymore. They all insist on 4K. But nobody wants 8K because 8K is hard to work with. It requires a lot more storage. The computers don't play it. It's problematic. And all those excuses or reasons why people don't want 8K, I heard when HD was switching to 4K. So 8K is going to be a legitimate format, and we're going to have 8K televisions. You can buy them today. And there's some really interesting applications for 8K, projecting on the sides of buildings and mountains and all kinds of...
It's crazy.
Certainly
Yeah.
large format for IMAX films and other special venues. 8K is a really interesting format.
So what I want to know is, where does it end? When are we going to max it out? Is it going to be 16? And are we going to keep going? What's going to happen with the case?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't really know, but there's some in between formats, and when the formats change, they change by a factor of 4. So HD was 4 times the resolution of standard definition. 4K is 4 times the resolution of HD. So
right.
So the next version would probably be 16K.
Wow, 16, yeah.
I don't know if they'll get there or not, but it's been changing pretty fast, and there would be applications for it.
Well, one of the interesting things, and not sure if Howard was planning on talking about this later, but we're talking about formats and increasing resolution. When digital image capture in video started, people were looking ahead to whether or not that could be applicable for IMAX feature films. Right. And in maybe 2005, there were some people who made an IMAX film using an HD digital image capture. It wasn't very good. We were shooting at the time in 70 millimeter 15 per film. Okay. The interesting thing, what I'm going to jump ahead to, is that now digital image capture in 8K is good enough to hold up on a large IMAX screen.
And actually, in my opinion,
Got it.
especially underwater, it's actually superior to 70mm film.
Okay. Right, right.
So there's the
Interesting.
progression.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So Howard just showed one of his videos, and Michael and Alex had asked that we show video and stills, so I took the role of showing stills. And in my selection of images that I'm going to show and talk about tonight, I chose to talk about images that I've taken when we've been on location on film productions. So I produce the films that Howard directs and shoots, and while we're in the field, one of the things that I do is shoot behind the scenes images of our crew working. So here we have Jonathan Bird.
I thought I recognized those crazy eyes.
Yes. We're in the Philippines here, and Jonathan and Howard had been filming this frogfish, if you can see in the center there, that purplish looking thing that's upside down. The frogfish was on the reef, and they were filming it and imagining in their heads how the story might come together, how it might be edited. And all of a sudden, this frogfish decided to go for a swim. And I was actually looking away, and Howard poked me and pointed, and the frogfish had landed, as you see, on Jonathan's tripod and just sat there for a couple of moments, long enough, thank goodness, that I was able to get myself organized and get this photo. And Jonathan saying, "What the heck is going on here with this frogfish?" And the frogfish swam away a moment later and went back to the reef and went back to doing what frogfish do, which is sort of like that. Not much until sometimes they put their lure out and try to eat something. But anyway, yeah. This was just, I thought, really a fun photo of behind the scenes of our crew working.
I love
Jonathan Bird. And frogfish.
It must be
so
wondering
great.
what is like behind the camera.
You're right. It's an aspiring filmmaker, Michael. Don't judge.
Yep.
Okay.
That's great.
Okay, this next video is was shot as a proposal for a film I wanted to do for PBS, and the idea was to kind of join the technologies of deep submersibles and rebreathers and film some deep water environments, 100 meters or between 100 and 150 meters, capturing things that have never been filmed before. And those kinds of dives are very difficult even with rebreathers because of all the bailout that's necessary and so forth. And the idea was to be able to put the bailout gear, lighting gear, and all the stuff that we like to use when we're down there on the submersible, have the submersible follow us around and act as support for rebreather divers. And so Richard Pyle and I made this video, and it was shot at a site called Everest at Cocos Island. Everest is a seamount that comes up to the very top is 170 feet and really spectacular, but it's basically a 120 meter dive. And so we just shot this, and then we submitted it as a proposal, and the executive producer of the programming that we were hoping to sell this to said, "Looks like boys and their toys to me," and that was it. But it was great fun to do. And
speaking of boys and their toys, we were out on we're out with the Undersea Hunter Group on their big boat called the Argo, and whoops, that's not right. And that's the support ship for the submersible.
And the wonderful thing about being down at these depths, especially at Cocos Island, if you're down at 120 meters, you wouldn't recognize it as Cocos Island. We've done 150 days of diving at Cocos over the years, and I wouldn't recognize this environment at all. It's just deeper than you normally go.
That's Richard. That's Dr. Richard Pyle.
Down at 120 meters, you wouldn't recognize it as Cocos Island. We've done 50 days of diving focus over the years, and I wouldn't recognize this environment at all. It's deeper than we normally go.
That's Richard. That's Dr. Richard Pyle.
We actually couldn't dive this seamount from the surface. The current was so strong, you literally couldn't get down the line. So we ended up riding the submersible down to the site, which was totally effortless and just a great way to make a deep dive.
If you ever have the chance to do this,
That's amazing.
if I had 10 thumbs, I'd be 10 thumbs up on taking advantage of the opportunity to make the submersible dive. So the person that you saw inside the capsule was me. It's Richard on the outside and Howard Fleming.
Is this the place they call it Everest?
Everest, yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay, my turn. So
That was
in
great.
2008, we went to South Australia. We were working on an IMAX 3D film called Under the Sea 3D. And yes, this is the IMAX 3D camera system. It weighs 1,300 pounds when it's out of the water. It's neutrally buoyant in the water, but you have to use a crane to get it into the water because it's so big and massive and heavy.
Wow.
And here we are at Neptune Islands. We had headed to Neptune Islands to film great white sharks, but one of the other things that's really fun to dive with and see and film when you're in that area, this is south of Port Townsend? Is it Port Townsend? No. Port Lincoln, south of Port Lincoln.
Port Lincoln, yeah.
Neptune Islands, and the Australian sea lions are just amazing. They are probably the most beautiful species of sea lion that I've ever seen. So we have the IMAX 3D camera down there, and the person that you can see most towards you with the yellow on his back, yellow rebreather, is Peter Craig, and Howard's on the other side with his orange dry suit glove. And they were filming these Australian sea lions who could, as you can see here, see their reflection in the port of the housing, and they were fascinated by it. So one of the things when you're shooting in 3D is that there's a critical distance. The subject needs to be a certain distance away so that it's in focus and you get that 3D effect. And Howard and Peter were very meticulous in setting up the shot so that the camera was that critical distance away from the subject. The problem was communicating that information to the sea lions because they just wanted to come in and see what was going on there. They could see the reflection. It was very cute. So
with this particular camera, there's a sweet spot where you capture really good 3D, and it's between 3 feet 2 inches away and 3 feet 8 inches away. And from that, even though it's just a few inches, the 3D effect is not very satisfying. And inside of 3 feet 2 inches, the image appears so close to you in the theater that you want to jump over the back of your chair and hide. So a very critical distance. Of course, you know, there's a lot of footage that we shot of this guy that doesn't work because it was either too far away or he's butting up right against the lens of the camera. As Michelle said, the camera weighs 1,300 pounds, but the good news is that it runs for 3 minutes before you have to change film. And then
3 whole minutes, amazing.
3 minutes, and then you have to send it up. That's 20 pounds of film, 3 minutes. And 600.
And how much did the film cost for 3 minutes?
Well, to process that 3 minutes is about $7,000. So if you leave the lens cap
that's
on,
just processing, not purchase.
Oh,
purchasing, processing, and printing is about $7,000. And then if you leave the lens cap on, your executive producers are a little upset with you because it is expensive. And and the other good news is that when you turn the camera on, it's a machine that has to ramp up that film to speed, and it has to be going 330 feet per minute. The film has to be going that fast, and that takes about 4 seconds for the film to ramp up to that speed. So anything you capture before that 4 seconds isn't going to be any good. So if you see something really great, you turn the camera on, you know, it doesn't count until 4 seconds later. And when you turn the camera off, it ramps down, and which is just as bad, because if you're waiting for something spectacular to happen, and you're waiting, the camera is running, which makes a big noise, and it's just like setting dollar bills on fire. It's just, you know, it's expensive as hell. And so you get kind of nervous about the camera running and nothing happening. So every once in a while I would turn the camera off, and then the animal would feed or whatever it was going to do. It happens right at that moment.
Of course.
And then you're in the theater with your executives, and you're playing this shot of an animal doing absolutely nothing.
Looking at the dailies, not the edited film, looking at the dailies.
Just the dailies. And all of a sudden the animal does something spectacular and the film stops. And everybody looks at you like,
Why?
what?
I got scared. I don't know.
Turned it off 4 seconds ago.
So as I was watching Howard and Peter working with this animal and trying to film it, I was obviously a bit away, and I had my camera, and at the time I was using a big Ike Light, one of those big Ike Light 150 strobes.
Yep.
And all of a sudden there's something pulling at me, and I thought, what the heck is going on? Why is my crew, who's behind me from my crew that's giving me a hard time? And I look up, and it was one of the sea lions that was biting at my strobe. Just, I don't know, the color and the size of it got its attention. It was playing with me, and then I looked down, and it was biting at my fins. And we actually have a video clip that we're not going to show today, but where the sea lions are coming around and they start nibbling at Howard's orange glove, and it's pretty fun. So
too funny.
Here's
look at them. Oh, too cute, those faces.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Next.
Love it. Next.
Okay, another video.
Okay.
This particular video is about a minute and a half long. It's one shot, and it's, of all the films that I put on Vimeo or YouTube, this is by far the most popular film, even though other films have had really nice editing and some sound effects and a lot of, you know, neat stuff. This is one shot. It's had over 2.5 million views.
Of which we've not monetized.
Yeah, we didn't get any
at
of
all.
that. The people that did it on the websites did quite well with it. But anyway, it's just one of those rare moments where there's a lot of anthropomorphism and interesting stuff going on. And the diver is Doug Seifert and
Armour.
Andrew
Armour. So this was filmed in Dominica.
Ah, okay.
That's Douglas. Douglas, I don't know if you're watching, but there you are. And there's Andrew.
Oh, wow.
So, fences are covered.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
That
amazing.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that must have been something.
a fun moment.
I'll bet.
Now we are in Kona, Hawaii. So in 2005, we were in production on another IMAX 3D film that ended up being called Deep Sea 3D. And we knew about this behavior. We had scouted the area, and we knew that with pretty good security that we'd be able to get this behavior of these tanks that come in to clean the turtles. Now, it only happens in certain areas, and even when you get in the water, there's big area of reef. It doesn't happen over here. It happens over here. It's, I don't know why. I mean, maybe somebody knows. Maybe Howard knows. But the turtles come in. Tends to happen earlier in the morning. The turtles come in and they settle down and hover on the reef, and the tangs come in and they eat the algae and parasites, I guess, and just clean the shells. And it's just really magical and so beautiful. Did you have something you want to say?
No, when we're working in 3D with the 70 millimeter camera, obviously looking at the camera, we don't go after things that are difficult. You know, we go after things that are really easy to film, very, very predictable. The best subjects are animals that are deaf, dumb, and blind. Starfish are great subjects. Very fast.
I was a great subject in a film that somebody else produced that Howard shot and directed.
What are you talking
Well, I'm not blind, but dumb.
Not as good as a starfish, but you tried.
Just these animals, the turtles do not care. You can get very, very close to them. The cleaning behavior continues without. They're just not bothered by it. So they're a great subject for the 3D camera. It was one of the best sequences in a film we made called Deep Sea 3D.
Yep. Our editor loved it. She loved when we were in the phase of picking the music. She called this the spa scene.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's such a neat thing. It's amazing that so many of them will congregate on one sea turtle. It's so cool.
It's a great photographic opportunity because the tangs with the yellow tangs, they're just being so beautiful and colorful.
It's great. Yeah, well, it's like when you see the clarion angels when you go to Socorro and stuff too.
Exactly.
Same when they're on the mantis and you're like, oh my God, it's so good.
Orange,
Amazing.
Michael. The clarion angel.
That's orange. Yes, exactly.
That was on Ernie's 80th birthday Socorro trip that you got that really good footage. I remember you shooting it.
Remember what happened to the port of your camera?
Yeah, I'll never forget that. Oh, God.
All fixed. I remember you stayed up all night polishing.
All night. But now I know how to fix acrylic dome ports.
That's right.
Fearless, whatever.
That's right. Okay.
I love it.
This next video is, it has narration on it. I excerpt it from a movie I made many years ago called Seasons of the Sea. And people often ask me what is the most exciting thing I've ever filmed. And this would be it. And this is a sequence of blue whales feeding on krill. We shot it in 1989.
Really?
And yeah, wow. And it was the first time, to my knowledge, that anybody had filmed blue whales feeding underwater. And it was just a spectacular sequence. And I've since, in the film, which is now on Amazon, I've replaced the stuff that was captured in standard definition with newer blue whale footage that I've captured in the last 15 years. And it has taken me that long to replace the scenes that I did for Seasons, of which I did in 4 days. So
wow.
We had 4 days of great shooting in 1989, and it's been 15 years of accumulating good enough shots to replace them with. So this is a sequence that's narrated by Ian Holm, and it's about 2 minutes long. Whoops, I went too far.
Unmolested krill spread out. Only a rosy haze betrays their presence in millions. But there are animals that can comb this diffuse feast from the sea. One is the largest in the world, the blue whale.
Whose dog?
At 100 feet in length, the blue whale is perhaps the largest animal that has ever lived. Certainly greater than any known dinosaur. As heavy as 24 elephants, it exists only on krill. With a sideways rush, it opens its colossal mouth, engulfing an entire school. Its throat balloons, swollen with a torrent of the living sea. Its 20-foot-long tongue will squeeze the water out through its baleen, a gigantic sieve which retains krill by the ton.
Wow.
So that was one of the better things I've done. I've been accumulating blue whale footage ever since I shot that sequence in '89, and it's really the animals are so big that you have to have absolutely perfect conditions in order to get a decent
I don't
image.
think I've seen better since then, blue whale footage like this. It's amazing.
No.
Well, you've been in the water with them, haven't you, Mike?
Yes, yeah, of course, in Sri Lanka, but it's very difficult.
It's very difficult. The water has to be crystal clear because the animals are so big. You got an animal that's 70 or 80 feet long. If visibility is only 70 feet, you don't see the whole animal. So it's got to be crystal clear. And then you've got to have animals that are somewhat predictable. Just getting a shot of a blue whale swimming by is not what I'm very interested in. I really want a shot of one doing something, feeding, or at least coming to me. And so you need a reason for them to do that, and that would be food. And in San Diego, occasionally you get these blooms of krill, and when the krill bloom, then blue whales and other animals show up to feed on them. Very often that's down in deep water where you can't film anything, but occasionally you'll get opalescent squid feeding on the krill, pushing the krill toward the surface, and then you get the swarms on the surface. And then if the water is clear and if there's no wind, because if there's a lot of wind, you can't work out in open water. If conditions are perfect, no wind, plenty of krill, clear water, and you don't always have blue whales show up, but if you have the blue whales show up, then you can actually get some. It's really, really hard. And we get the BBC and the people like that calling us all the time and saying, we want to come out and film blue whales. What's the best time of year?
You're like, I don't know, 2021 sometime.
I'll say we have 3 days. When should we come?
There have been a couple of production companies that have come out and filmed them very, very well. A cameraman named Dave Riker has been out and has captured some beautiful stuff. But they spent 2 full summers to shoot a sequence. Yeah, and they got very lucky. One of those summers was 2015, where I got most of those shots. So it's a tough one, but and another thing that's really interesting about blue whales is the size. Now you could almost put a humpback whale in the mouth of a blue whale, and it wouldn't make much of a bulge. They're just so much bigger than a humpback whale. And you put an elephant in there, and it wouldn't make a difference.
Right. That's so nuts. Do you guys ever use have friends with spotter planes or anything to track the blue whales or anything?
We've done that when we've been making films, and we have a budget to throw money at something like that. We never did that with blue whales because it was not predictable enough. And and the only time I actually captured blue whale footage specifically for a film was when I did Seasons of the Sea in 1990. And we went out and had no idea that we were going to get this footage. It was just something that happened over a 4-day period. And, you know, and before I shot those sequences, I'd never seen a blue whale. And at the time, in 1989, they thought there was only 1,200 blue whales on the whole planet. So when we filmed them and I captured the sequences, I was convinced they were finback whales because I knew they couldn't be blue whales. They're far too rare.
Right.
Wow.
And of course, there's issues with regulations and Marine Mammal Protection Act. And so the way that Howard and his buddies managed to do this is not stalking the blue whales, but looking for patches of krill.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Look for the krill. The animal comes to you. You're
Yeah.
not harassing it.
You just jump
Makes
into a
sense.
swarm of krill and wait for a blue whale to come and eat it.
So try to be invisible, you know, great.
Yeah, I'm up next, but I just have to close the blind. Stand by.
Okay, yeah, I see it's getting very bright.
The sun's going down in San Diego, which is where we are. And
Yeah,
see it going down over the ocean from here.
not the worst view.
It's nice because we can't leave home.
Well, let's talk about our location though. Oh, that's better. Okay, next.
Okay.
So, talking about behavior, maybe we'll see, hopefully we're going to see Howard and Jonathan Bird again filming dugong. So here we are in Coron, Philippines. Howard and I had been to Coron and we had filmed these dugong and had some experience with it. And Jonathan wanted to film them for an episode of his TV, well, now YouTube series, Jonathan's Big Blue World.
Jonathan Bird's Blue World. Yeah.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
So he asked us if we would be interested in going back with him to help sort out the logistics and make it happen. And why not? Because you want to go diving with dugongs. It's a little bit tedious. You go out and you spend 6, 7, 8 hours on the boat looking for them to stick their little nose up to the surface and so that you know that there's somebody there, and then you get in the water and snorkel or dive with them. So here we are in the water with them. That's Howard in the foreground and Jonathan in the background. And this guy is just posing and great. And then it swam away and these remoras gathered around it, and the dugong was not terribly happy about having all these remoras falling all over it. And he turned on his back and was rubbing his back, and the way a puppy might roll over to scratch an itch. And it was just a great behavioral sequence. Howard and Jonathan got film of it, and I just was fortunate to get a decent shot of this dugong trying to itch the remoras off its back and go away.
That's amazing. What a cool thing to see.
Very sort of anthropomorphic. We talk about, I watched Alex Mustard's talk with you a few nights ago, and
That's
talking
great.
about the things that you look for and what makes a photograph appealing. And certainly anthropomorphism plays into it very well. And I think we can all identify with what this poor animal was feeling. It's as if it had flies or buzzing around it, or ants crawling all over it, just doing what it could for mosquitoes to get that critter to go away, leave it alone.
That's so great.
Fun.
Wow.
Yep.
That's pretty amazing.
Okay.
Well, I've got, I think this might be my last video.
It is.
One of the things that's happening today that I'm sure, Michael, you know a lot, and Alex, you've probably done some blackwater diving yourself, and it's the new hot thing to go out in open ocean, dive with lights, and film the things that come up as part of the deep scattering layer, or just juvenile organisms that come up toward the surface. And we spent some time at Crystal Blue Resort in the Philippines in Anilao recently with Mike Bartik, who has done a lot of this kind of work. And we shot this sequence for the IMAX movie that we're working on now. When you compose for IMAX, you tend to put things sort of at the bottom of the screen, so you'll notice things are a little bit low in composition. And this was all shot in 8K.
I can't imagine you working with such a big camera on this small little creatures. It must be very, very, very difficult.
It's an 8K camera, so it's not really that huge.
This wasn't with the 3D IMAX 3D camera.
Okay. But still, it's big.
It's still
really difficult to get a still of some of these things. You have to get very, very close, and you have to grab focus and you pull the trigger. And the great autofocus systems that we have today, you know, do a great job with that. It's still really, really hard. With video, you've got to get the animal composed right, get it in focus, and keep it there long enough to get a sequence. And it's very, very challenging. I had a lot of fun doing it. And most of the stuff I shot, I threw away. I mean, I got a shot of a blanket octopus that I deleted.
Oh, no.
Got in focus, you know.
Oh, dang.
Great.
Yeah.
That is.
Anyway, this is the stuff that I shot. It's nothing particularly spectacular. Obviously, no blanket octopus in here. But it just shows you what you can do. And I really enjoyed this stuff. I'm looking forward to doing more of it.
This is the result of just 8 nights of 8 dives, 7 or 8 dives.
Nice.
Huge learning curve.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So cool.
Definitely
Okay, so
looking for more of that.
question about something you said. So you said you keep the subjects oriented towards the bottom of the screen. Why is that?
Well, the IMAX screen is so big. When you're sitting in an IMAX theater, there's 2 kinds primarily of IMAX theaters. There's 3D theaters, which can be a screen that's 118 feet across by 80 feet high. Or it can be an IMAX dome, which is almost as big, but wraps all the way around you. So obviously, if you fill the frame with something, you can't look at the whole thing. You can't look at it all at once. It's too big. So the sweet spot in IMAX is at the bottom of the screen, just before halfway up. Anything that gets halfway above the bottom is a little bit too high for most things. And you know, you kind of imagine that the image is wrapping all the way around you. The shot of Michelle's with the humpback whale would not work in IMAX dome because
Interesting.
the nose of the whale would be over to your left someplace, and,
Yeah.
and I would be over to the right, and you'd be wondering why I took a picture of the pectoral fin. So, you know, you want everything much, much further away, or done with a wider lens, and down kind of low at the bottom of the frame. So,
Interesting. I'd never thought about that.
For that reason, IMAX films don't translate very well to television. Now you can reproduce them and do some cropping, which a lot of producers will do. And that video that I just showed you, Phantasm, that's not exactly what was shot. The way it was shot was actually a little bit further away, a little bit more toward the bottom of the frame, and I cropped it to make it look nice and 16:9.
Ah.
But yes, and the reverse is also true. So if you shoot some spectacular stuff in 16:9, typical format for HD or 4K or 8K, it's, unless you composed everything intentionally for IMAX, it's probably not going to work in IMAX. You need a lot, you need everything to be down low. So there's a lot of production companies like BBC produces films for IMAX, and they take, Blue Planet 2 and they blow it up to IMAX, and they take it to IMAX theaters, and it doesn't look very good.
Right.
It takes a little bit of practice.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, okay, cool. Thanks.
Whoops. Okay, so we're getting close to the end here of our little presentation, and I wanted to show you a couple of other production shots of filming humpback whales. So in this case, we're in Tonga. We went on vacation to Tonga in the summer of 2012 with Douglas Seaford and his wife Emily, and spent a few weeks getting to know these humpback whales and the logistics there. And just about that time, the Gilderoy Freeman Films, based in Laguna Beach, were planning an expedition to film humpback whales in Tonga. And they contacted us and said, well, you've done it, and can you help us, and would you film it and help us with the logistics? So we went back a few weeks later, and what you see here is Howard with that big yellow camera that he's using is an IMAX 2D camera. That camera system weighs about 250 pounds out of the water. And
it's film.
And it's shot in not digital. And you see that he's on a tank here. Typically when you're in Tonga with the humpback whales, you're free diving, but we got special permission to, because of the film production and the size of this camera, it would not really have been reasonable for him to dive that on snorkel. So we got permission for him to go in with scuba. And just magnificent moment with this of him.
When was that?
This photograph was taken in September of 2012.
So that was the last time that I shot 70 millimeter film, and so that
we did South Pacific after that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we've done other. Yeah, we've done another IMAX film right. For McGilvery Freeman Films.
But
sorry, but
we won't be shooting. We won't be shooting 70 millimeter film anymore.
No,
we're shooting 8K now, and it actually does a better job. Yeah. And the cameras are much smaller, cost nothing to operate, and run for 40 minutes without changing a magazine. So.
But it's still. I mean, I love this photo because the colors and Howard with this camera and the whales, and
it's great.
There's just a lot that I love about this photograph. So as much as I love photographing behavior of small critters, I do have a love for big animals as well, and humpback whales, as you see here. And in the next photo, we wanted to film humpback whales for the current film that we're making, as well as for our stock footage library. So in this photograph, we're in Moorea, French Polynesia, where this was October 2018. Excuse me, we're working with Rodolphe Haller and his team off of Moorea. And what you see Howard using as a camera here is the 8K digital red camera. Yep. And I love this. I call this photograph Namaste. I just love the proximity and the way that humpback calves' pectoral fins are, and you can see the little swirl. If you look above I can't point and show you what I'm trying to show you.
Yep,
if you look above the whale, you see a little bit of a swirl of water. And one of the really fun things for me about this is I wasn't using a strobe, so I could snap away at my photos while Howard was filming and not worry about flashing his frame. And we have video of him filming this whale at exactly the same moment, and we're able to ID that it's exactly the same moment because you see the swirl of the water from the surface and the, again, just the whole pose. So that's really a fun thing for me. And I think for all of us photographers, when we look at our photographs, it's not just what we see in the image, but the emotion that we get as we remember what was going on when that photograph was taken. I mean, that's the way for everybody. When you look at any photograph, if you go beyond just looking at what you see on the screen and think about what was going on when that picture was taken, and that you can transport yourself back to that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so great. Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Both of you have very successful career in what you've been doing all these years. What would be your advice for want to be the next Howard Hall, next Michele Hall?
Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Well, you know, I actually wrote I've been asked that question more than once, more than 100 times. And so and a lot of people send me emails with that question. So I sat down and wrote it all up once as an essay, and it's on our website. If you go to howardhall.com, you can find an article on the website called Breaking In, and it's all about how I did it and what I think is valuable in the process. But to make a long story short, you know, I think that we've been very, very lucky, and a lot of people say, well, if I can do it, anybody can do it. That's probably true as far as talent is concerned, but we've had a lot of really good breaks. We had a lot of luck. We met the right people. We got the right help at the right time. The first major film I made was a huge success. Who knows why? And after that, my whole career just kind of fell into place. So in many ways, I've been very, very lucky. I think that if I was going to give young people advice as to how to approach it, it would be to go out and capture the images, make the films, write the articles, print the images, put them in galleries, do all of those things because you love doing it and not because you want to make money at it. If money becomes a significant part of the incentive, then I think it's easy to be disappointed. If, on the other hand, you find yourself, you know, making films for YouTube or whatever, and after several years of doing something you really love, you find you're making more money at it than you are, you know, working in a bank, and have to quit and actually do it full time, great. But I think that if your idea is how do I make a living as an underwater filmmaker, it's difficult to get started. Once you're in the business, it can be relatively a good business to be in, but it's very tough to get started.
I mean, in a way, I feel that it is much easier now than before because of the technology we have, and also because of the medium we can actually show our work. But like what you say, to make a living out of it, I think it's much harder than in our days, in the early days, because there's a lot more work out there.
I don't think it was ever easy. It's just very, very different now. When I started out in 1978, or actually 1974, taking still photographs, writing articles for Skin Diver magazine, and I built my first underwater movie camera in 1978. I had to build it because you couldn't buy an underwater system. You couldn't buy a housing for a movie camera. Those things weren't available. And because they weren't available, there was very few people out there doing professional underwater film work. And in 1978, I'm not exaggerating, I could probably tell you everybody, I probably knew or had met everybody that was in the business. Today, there's more people in San Diego doing spectacular work than I know. Just in one city, there's thousands of people out there. There's amazing work being done on YouTube, and you know it's just very different. It was easier for me because I had very little competition. It's harder today because you've got so many people out there doing it to compete with. But the technology opens so many doors for you. So you know, it's I don't think it's any harder or easier today than it was before. It's just different. And if you love it and you keep at it, you'll get your. It's easy to get your stuff on the tube or on the flat screen these days. You know, the good stuff rises to the top, and you might find yourself, you know, having to quit your job.
Yeah.
I think networking is important, and certainly Michael and Alex, we've seen each other at a lot of shows at DEMA and other shows around the country, around the U.S. and around the world, and that's an opportunity to network. Yes, it costs money to go to those events. I appreciate that, but if your heart is in it and you want to do it and you want to make a career, you need to get out there and meet people. And one of the ways that you can help to fund your endeavors is looking for scholarships. So obviously I'm not talking to the two of you with advice for this, but to answer Michael's question, there are so many scholarship opportunities that are available to people, and I can't encourage people enough to do that. Women Divers Hall of Fame, Zale Perry Scholarship. There's just two that off the top of my head. There's, sorry that I'm not coming up with others
That
at
is
the
the
moment.
Rolex Underwater Scholarship.
Yep.
That's an amazing scholarship. Yeah.
It's the Our World Underwater.
Yeah.
So many, and that's a way of learning, meeting people, getting your name out there, and learning about what other people are doing, and examining opportunities.
Sure.
Absolutely. I tell people, so many people, about the Women Divers Hall of Fame scholarships, because I mean, I wouldn't have a camera if it weren't for that. You know, like I got a advanced dive training grant 7 years ago from Women Divers Hall of Fame, and I was able to do my dive master and get my underwater camera housing. And, you know, for so many of us, it's cost prohibitive, you know, to actually get into it. It's like you might have a camera, but you can't get it underwater. And I wouldn't have been able to start doing underwater photography at all if it weren't for that. So I always recommend that people check that one out in particular, because that changed everything for me. So
I didn't know that about you, Alex. That's wonderful.
yeah.
I'm wearing my pin. If we
Yay!
have any,
I saw, yay!
just want you to see, I'm proudly showing my pin and my nose.
Very nice.
Wow.
I
Alex,
love
any
it.
question out there for
I'm looking right now, actually. Yeah, hold on. It was mostly comments that everyone was so happy to see you guys. So yes.
It's such a
Check in.
privilege.
Catherine Castle says hello.
People know, I mean, we're just here, just sort of talking to Alex and Michael, and we don't know how many people are out there, if we're talking to an empty room or what's going on.
No, not at all. There are currently 45 people on Facebook, and then we've got another handful of them in here. So yeah.
It's such a privilege for us to have you here with us. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And we look forward to see you again on the other side of the storm.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for the great work.
Hopefully DEMA.
Hopefully DEMA.
You guys are great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you and a good
Thank
evening.
you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Cheers.
Have a good night.
Bye.